on satellite, on Freeview, on cable, on radio, on mobile, on the web and around the world. This is First at 9 on Other Derana 24/7.
Hammering out particulars, Constitutional Assembly meets for the second day in Parliament. Relax the boundaries. Tea exporters call for import liberalisation through 2018 budget to promote greater competition.
We can gain much more than keeping them away from here.
Step in the right direction. Saitam founder pleased with GMOA over its acceptance of the government's decision. The JVP, however, isn't happy. Postponement of election possible. Nuvarelia gets 4 more Pradesh Sabha divisions. PAFL warns of a further delay if challenged.
If there is a legal intervention, it will take at least 3 months.
Russian interference. Trump's election campaign manager pleads not guilty to indictment. Bring you news from home and across the world. This is First at 9 on Other Derana 24/7. Good evening, I'm Katharina Chang. On to top story tonight, the debate on the interim report of the Steering Committee of the Constitutional Assembly continued for a second day today, with parliamentarians expressing a multitude of views.
Through
the Mahinda Chintanaya Lower Dinavana Maga program, he stated as follows, quote, "We suffered for 36 years under the constitution forced on us in 1978. Instead of further plastering over the issue, I will work towards getting a new constitution approved within a year, one that will reflect people's hopes," unquote. That's what we're doing today. We find it hard to understand why you're opposing this. President Maithripala Sirisena contested in the elections, promising to abolish the executive presidency. It is not ethical for the SLFP to say now that they don't agree with abolishing the executive presidency. Abolishment of the executive presidency is something that must happen through the new constitution. If not, there will not be a new constitution because that's its very basis. The constitution can't bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Neither can it create religious reconciliation among the public and dispel ethnic differences. It, however, does support those aims and at least build up trust. However, is our discussion working towards establishing that trust? This discussion focuses on the interim report. Protests occur around the parliament over this interim report. What's happening here is we're trying to play according to our political stances and trying to gain power by stoking racist sentiments. We accept that our Tamil brothers have many expectations for the future. Equally, the Sinhalese too have expectations as well as many uncertainties. Our government addresses those expectations, but not the uncertainties. This government is taking steps, seeking the Tamil people's vote, not to solve these issues that worry them. They have turned this discussion pertaining to this draft into a Trojan horse. MP Dala Salahapperuma, who questions the need for a new constitution today, went from village to village in 1995 as an active member of the White Lotus movement, lobbying for a new constitution. He lobbied for a constitution which replaces the word unitary with united and gives away land and police powers. I request you not to run away with your rhetoric amid the burning issues of the present day. This is a very open process. There were no conspiracies here. We're trying to build a consensus. That's what you call democracy. The yes men of dictators may not understand what this process is, but those who respect democracy will.
Minister Susil Premajatha says that if a new constitution is prepared for the future of the country, there shouldn't be any hidden purposes. The minister expressed these views addressing a conference called National Reconciliation Stage held in Colombo last evening.
When the 20th Amendment was brought, I said it won't work since a referendum would have been required. There are methods to postpone an election. It was brought during the third reading. Now I might get asked why I voted for it, and it's a different story. This election amendment bill could have been passed with a simple majority. Instead, the 20th Amendment was brought and it was rejected. Since there was the Supreme Court judgment, the Attorney General said it too requires a two-thirds majority. Whilst doing that, the 50-50 was introduced. Now try and create provincial councils if possible. The presidency is being abolished. Had there been a system of first past the post, what about the next parliament when it is amended? It will be 60-40. If it is amended 50-50, would there be a stable country if it is amended 50-50? This problem will arise. President J.R. Jayawardena did it so smoothly that he didn't change anything after the 8th clause. You may remember that the two-thirds was obtained with everyone present in 24 hours. Then what happened? 2 hand grenades were launched to the committee room too. Bombing parliament is not something new, and it happened in 1987. We know who did the bombing. We have such a history. What we have now is the issue of living. A kilo of rice is more than 100 rupees, and so is coconut. If we try to give a starving man a constitution, some choice words might be uttered and we'll ask for something to eat first.
The Cabinet of Ministers granted its approval today for the proposal by the Delimitation Committee on dividing Nuwara and Ambagamo Pradeshya Sabhas into 6 separate Pradeshya Sabhas. Meanwhile, several protests were organised today against the delimitation issues pertaining to the Ampara and Nuwara districts.
The delimitation report pertaining to local government elections was issued recently and has been under much public scrutiny. It is in this backdrop where Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government Faiz Mustafa is to issue the Gazette notification pertaining to the elections tomorrow. However, several protests were organised against delimitation issues today. One of the protests was organised in Ginigathena against the decision to remove the Adams Peak from Ambagamo Pradeshya Sabha and bring it under the Maskele Pradeshya Sabha. Meanwhile, the Delimitation Committee had recommended to divide the Ambagamo and Nuwara Pradeshya Sabhas into 6 separate Pradeshya Sabhas since their combined population exceeds 200,000. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to divide these entities as per the recommendation of the Delimitation Committee today. The existing Ambagamo Pradeshya Sabha will thereby be divided into the 3 Pradeshya Sabhas of Ambagamo, Norwood and Maskeliya, while Nuwara will be divided into Nuwara, Agarapatana and Kotagala Pradeshya Sabhas. 4 separate Pradeshya Sabhas will therefore be established within the Nuwara district. The Kalmune municipality in Ampara district was established in 1987 by combining several areas such as Sainda Marudu. A protest was organised by residents of Sainda Marudu demanding a separate Pradeshya Sabha today and was staged over the last few days. Another protest meanwhile was organised against Sainda Marudu's separation from the Kalmune Municipal Council. These protesters engaged in a protest march to the Kalmune Divisional Secretariat to hand over an epistle to the Secretary. Derana inquired from PAFRAL as to how these protests would affect the upcoming local government election.
We have noticed that there are a couple of issues are taking place now in Ambagamo and Nuwara and also in the eastern part of the country. For example, in Ambagamo and Nuwara, they are requesting to divide it into a couple of local authorities, and at the same time we have noted that some of the civil group, they are going to challenge the new demarcations proposed by the minister. In any case, if there is a legal interventions, if anybody file a fundamental case at the Supreme Court, it will take at least 3 months and it will affect for the again postponed elections. So if there is any issue with some sort of local authorities, the minister can issue the Gazette notification except those local authorities area. Because in Sri Lankan electoral system, we have 337 local authorities. So it is really unfair because of 2 local authorities if we are going to postpone the election for the entire country. So we humbly request from the Prime Minister and the President to seriously consider this and make the necessary arrangement to have a local elections somewhere in January as they promised.
Parliamentarians of the United National Party held a meeting with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe last evening at the Temple Trees. A meeting to discuss the upcoming local government election was chaired by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at Temple Trees, which was attended by parliamentarians of the United National Party last evening.
There was a discussion as to how to face the election as a party. Bringing a new constitution was discussed in detail. Through this, we hope to seek an answer to accusations of election postponement and bring about politics called for by the patriots. Our leader laid out a plan on how to face elections. Furthermore, a plan which will serve as a response to those who are critical along with the budget was also laid out. He especially mentioned that the elections will be held on the 20th of January. There are some amendments that should be passed, and the Prime Minister said that elections will be held as soon as possible, emphasizing the UNP's need to hold the elections soon.
In the meantime, the General Secretary of United People's Freedom Alliance, Minister Mahinda Amaraweera, too expressed views on the upcoming elections.
The Gazette will be published this week. The background is created for the chairman of the Election Commission to hold elections in January without any delays.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the country must progress, but at the same time be able to settle its debts. He made these remarks at an event held today.
218 housing units of the Metsanda Sevena apartment complex were vested on the public yesterday under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
We commenced a program to construct 4,000 more houses. We're calling for tenders to select a suitable contractor. This government does not have any agenda to evacuate people and station army personnel in lands and only award contracts to those who are closest to them, like the previous government. The President and the Prime Minister only wants to reap the benefits of development through transparency. Even if it takes some time, we will do this with utmost patience.
It
is not an easy task to construct houses in this manner. Back in 2015, we had to shoulder a debt-ridden economy. We were put in a position where we were unable to settle our debts. But now we are in a place where we can systematically offset these debts. This is a large amount. When we looked at the amount, we were of the view that such a debt will only be settled in the next generation. However, we decided that this generation should and must settle this debt in their lifetime. Therefore, we have a responsibility to settle it in 2018 and 2019. This amounts to over 3,000 billion rupees. But this does not mean we should be disheartened. We did not give up when it came to construction of houses. We need to settle our debts and progress at the same time.
Parliamentarian Bandhu Gunawardena warns that the joint opposition will lodge complaints with various international organizations, including the Inter-Parliament Union, over injustices the parliamentarian of the joint opposition are subjected to by the government. He made the remark attending to media briefing held in Joint Opposition Economy Research Centre today.
Yesterday was the first time in my life that the parliamentary road was closed for parliamentarians. Prasanna Ranavira is imprisoned in Tangul just because he protested against the government's policy of giving control of national resources to foreign entities. There were no prohibition orders against him, and yet he was arrested and his bail refused. In other countries, parliamentarians are given the power to supervise jails, but here in Sri Lanka, parliamentarians are imprisoned. Parliamentarians of the joint opposition are going to participate in the Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference, which will be held in Bangladesh, and we will lodge a complaint on the tragic fate of Sri Lankan parliamentarians. We will also file a complaint with the Inter-Parliamentary Union on the issue.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. The founder and chairman of SITEM, Dr. Neville Fernando, today issued a statement commending Government Medical Officers Association's acceptance of the government's solution to the SITEM issue. Meanwhile, Politburo member of the JVP, KD Lalkantha, however, states that all parties involved in the SITEM issue do not hold the same stance of the Government Medical Officers Association.
The final decision of the government pertaining to the SITEM issue was announced on Sunday, prompting objections from several parties. Politburo member of JVP KD Lalkantha, who spoke to Derana regarding the matter, stated that the stance of the GMOA in this battle is to standardize private universities and opposed to objecting the establishment of private universities. Adding that they are of the view that solution sought by the GMOA is included in government's proposition, He also stated that they will continue the Saitam battle to denounce the sale of MBBS degree programs. Meanwhile, convener of the Inter-University Students Federation, Lahiru Veerasekara, and convener of the Inter-University Bhikkhu Federation, Venerable Tampiti Sugatananda Thera, who were in remand custody over alleged violations of a court order, were granted bail upon two sureties of Rs 200,000 each by Colombo Fort Magistrate Lanka Jayaratna today.
Antibiotics. Powerful drugs used to prevent and treat bacterial infections have taken the world by storm and have saved countless people from premature death. However, this miracle medicine reputation is also one of the greatest pitfalls of antibiotics, as people tend to use them indiscriminately. First at 9, Sadhinu Pekar takes a look into the importance of responsible use of antibiotics along with the rising menace of antibiotic resistance.
The era of modern antibiotics began in 1928 with Scottish physician Sir Alexander Fleming's accidental discovery of the antibiotic penicillin. Since then, hundreds of new antibiotics have come onto the scene, saving millions of lives and revolutionizing healthcare. However, their very power is their hidden threat. People have begun taking antibiotics for granted, using them as they please, often disregarding medical advice. This not only leads to adverse side effects, but also steps up one of the biggest threats faced today by global health, a phenomenon called antibiotic resistance. To find out more on this silent threat, First at 9 spoke to Professor in Pharmacology at the Medical Faculty of Colombo, Professor Priyadarshini Galapatti.
If you use an antibiotic incorrectly, the bacteria will become resistant to that particular antibiotic. Bacterial infections pass from one patient to the other. So when the infection goes to the next patient, what goes is a resistant organism. Therefore, the next patient gets a resistant bacterial infection which will not be killed by the antibiotic that was used in the first patient.
More and more infections such as pneumonia and tuberculosis are becoming harder to treat as the antibiotics used for them become less effective. Powerful antibiotics will be needed for the slightest of diseases, and they bring along severe side effects such as kidney and liver problems. Making things worse, the production of new antibiotics has plummeted thanks to profit-seeking pharmaceutical corporations.
Profits are generally more if they develop new drugs for the non-communicable diseases such as high blood pressure, diabetes, heart diseases, because these diseases require treatment for a long period of time, if not lifelong. And therefore, sales of the drug will be more and their profits will be more.
What is being done by authorities to ensure that antibiotics are not misused? Chief Executive Officer of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority, Dr. Kamal Jayasinghe, had this to say.
Antibiotic should be given only by a pharmacist on a prescription only. If we find at any pharmacy, if someone gives without a prescription, legal action can be taken. For each and every pharmacy, there should be a qualified pharmacist. We have organized awareness programs. We are educating the consumers, the patients, then the prescribers, the pharmacists, chemists who are dispensing.
It is also up to the public to use antibiotics in a responsible manner.
Responsible, qualified doctors do not prescribe antibiotics irrationally. Therefore, if a doctor prescribes an antibiotic, I think you can ask whether this antibiotic is needed. If an antibiotic is prescribed for you, you need to take that course properly, even if you feel better in 2 to 3 days without missing any doses. If we do not have antibiotics to treat the common infections due to development of resistance, we will go back into the pre-antibiotic era where large numbers of people used to die as a result of these illnesses. So use antibiotics wisely so that we can prevent the development of resistance.
The second session of Sri Lanka-Qatar Joint Economic, Commercial and Technical Commission was held in Colombo today. Discussions were held on further enhancing bilateral relations between the two countries. The Qatari delegation was led by Minister of Economy and Commerce of Qatar, Sheikh Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Thani, while the Sri Lankan delegation was led by Minister of Industry and Commerce, Rishad Baduddin. Discussions pertaining to trade, investment, tourism and economic cooperation in the fields of energy, transport, infrastructure, civil aviation, health sector and sports were deliberated. Both parties highlighted the importance of enhancing bilateral trade, as it has been observed the value of two-way trade between Sri Lanka and Qatar remained low over the past years, while the pattern of trade has been inconsistent. Furthermore, the two sides agreed to promote expansion and diversification of economic trade and investment cooperation. Both parties highlighted the importance of reactivating the Sri Lanka-Qatar Bilateral Investment Promotion and Protection Treaty, which was ratified in 2013. Tea Exporters Association of Sri Lanka has submitted 6 proposals for government consideration when formulating the budget 2018 in a bid to uplift the struggling industry. Among the proposals, tea exporters suggest that policy be relaxed in order to open the Sri Lankan market for tea imports. Speaking to First at 9, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tea Exporters Association, Jayantha Karunaratne pointed out that market liberalisation will help negate current negative impact on the Ceylon tea brand.
Sri Lanka currently produces 300 million kilograms of tea, bringing in revenue of $1.6 billion to the country.
We are 150 years old. We are making good tea in this country. We have given proposals to the government with the idea of increasing revenue for the country. At the same time, look for sustainable tea prices. The producers here want good prices, because here the cost of production in Sri Lanka is high, so we want sustainable prices. Current levels are good. And also to make Sri Lanka a tea center to the world. We believe we are not making use of this opportunity we have in this country to get the best out of this industry.
Karunaratne added that the government should consider relaxing policy to allow the import of orthodox black tea for re-export purposes. Currently, tea exporters are allowed to import CTC, green tea and other specialty teas duty-free for re-export purposes.
We don't produce even 5% of the world tea production. By liberalizing imports and allowing the foreign companies to come into Sri Lanka to establish their factories here, they are set up here, we can gain much more than keeping them away from here. They will bring large investments into the country. So the people outside the world will look at Sri Lanka as a tea center. We have the best experience in the tea industry. We have good producers, best tea tasters, exporters, brand owners. So we can get the others also to come here and use this opportunity to make this very big.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the Tea Exporters Association talked about the challenging views in the industry.
There is a lobby and people say that by bringing in tea, the prices in Ceylon tea will come down. That is not true. Actually, we believe prices of Ceylon tea should go up. By bringing in all those other multinational companies in big, we create an additional demand for Ceylon tea. So that will push up our prices further. Some argue that will damage the image for Ceylon tea. This cannot happen if you want to ship Ceylon tea. It's another brand in the international market. It's a brand owner's responsibility to make sure that he ship only the Ceylon tea.
It is now time to take a look at corporate news in brief. Chairman of the Council for the Promotion of International Trade Shanghai, Yang Jianrong, expressed their willingness to work towards enhancing commercial ties between Sri Lanka and China during the Council's visit to the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce recently. Meanwhile, the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce expressed its fullest cooperation in enhancing two-way commercial ties between the two countries. State Minister of International Trade, Sujiva Senasinghe, attended a series of high-level meetings to enhance and strengthen bilateral economic cooperation between Sri Lanka and Germany on the sidelines of the 34th Anuga International Food and Beverage Exhibition in Germany. The State Minister met with his counterpart, Professor Andreas Pinkwart, with whom he discussed options for German vehicle manufacturers to bring electronic car development to Sri Lanka. Ministry of Finance and Mass Media has brought toddy tapping from coconut and palmyra trees under license, with amendment proposed to Section 15 of the Excise Ordinance. Accordingly, no toddy shall be drawn or lowered from coconut or palmyra trees without a license issued by the Department of Excise or by the respective divisional secretaries. Stocks ended higher at the close of trade today as gains in healthcare, palm oil and trading sectors led shares to rise. Turnover crossed 732 million rupees for the day. Meanwhile, foreigners remained active, closing as net buys mainly due to foreign purchases in Hatton National Bank and Commercial Bank. Total foreign purchases accounted for 57.2% of turnover. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan rupee ended slightly weaker today in dull trade as importer dollar buying outpaced mild exporter greenback conversions. Let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Former presidential election campaign manager of US President Donald Trump, Paul Manafort, and his former business associate Rick Gates, who surrendered to federal authorities yesterday, pleaded not guilty to indictment against alleged involvement in Russian interference in the 2016 US presidential election.
The 12-count indictment, including money laundering, tax evasion, failure to register as agents for foreign interests, as well as conspiracy to defraud the US government against Paul Manafort and Rick Gates, is the first indictment from the investigation conducted by Justice Department Special Counsel Robert Mueller. However, the link between charges on Manafort to his position as the campaign manager are still unclear. According to Special Counsel Robert Mueller, former campaign advisor to US President Donald Trump, George Papadopoulos also pleaded guilty to lying to FBI agents on matters related to the inquiry of the alleged Russian interference. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump also expressed views on the escalation of the inquiry via Twitter.
You are watching Sri Lanka's trusted news brand, Other Derana 24/7.
Sri Lankan cricketers returned to the island yesterday following a successful Test series and an abysmal ODI and T20 series against Pakistan, with the last of the 3 T20 matches played in Lahore. In a media briefing held today, team coach Nick Pothas asserted that the spotlight must equally fall on the victories in the tour as well as the defeats, adding that there was positive progress on the fielding side.
On the whole, across the whole tour, we can certainly glean a lot of positives. Fielding has improved out of sight, and the bowling as well was of a very high standard. The execution of plans was very pleasing. Obviously, some of the batting didn't go according to plan, so it's always going to be tough.
Do you think there's any merit in bringing in some fresh faces, just so that they don't have the memories of all these defeats?
I totally understand where you guys come from. I just want to make sure that with respect to the players that went and represented their country and made history, that they actually get as much mileage as the negativity that comes out in the press. To answer your question, it's pretty obvious what a mood would be like when you've lost 16 ODI games. I don't think I need to answer that question because it would be the same anywhere else in the world. With respect to new faces, that's a conversation that we need to have with the selectors, but I think it stands to reason that anywhere in any walk of life, when you've had negative results for a period of time, you need to see some change somewhere, whether it be from the same people or whether it be from different people, you do need to see change.
The All-Ireland Inter-School Junior Tennis Championship was worked off at the Sri Lanka Tennis Association courts in Colombo recently.
This year's tournament was held under 3 age groups, under 7, under 8 and under 10. In the girls category, Ave Maria Convent Negombo won the under 7 championship, while Muses College Colombo won the under 8 and Newstead Girls College Negombo won the under 10. Anand College in Colombo claimed the overall boys championship for the 8th time, winning all 3 age groups. Overall championship was not awarded in the girls category.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Bringing you the weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Let's now cross over to Southern Upeka at the Other Derana Weather Centre.
Good evening and welcome to the Weather Centre. Now tomorrow we'll see cooler temperatures averaging at 26 degrees Celsius along the west coast and hitting a maximum of 29 degrees Celsius in the northeast. As usual, the central hills are set for much cooler weather with temperatures set to max out at 22 degrees Celsius. Now a low pressure zone will form across the island during the course of the day, spelling showers or thunder showers in most parts of the island, especially the south, southwest and central hills. That's it from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your City by City forecast.
And before we go, we'd like to take you to Ravana Falls in Alla, which is said to be connected to the famous Indian epic the Ramayana. The waterfall hides caves where King Ravana is said to have held Sita captive after kidnapping her from India. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.